Hello, all, and welcome. My name is Ayana Wallace View, and I'm a Training and Technical Assistance Manager with Ujima, the National Center on Violence Against Women in the Black Community. Welcome back for another episode of our Ujima Talk series focused on Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. These one-on-one Ujima talks are meant to offer insights into how dating violence shows up in the lives of Black teens and youth and explore the support that they need to stay safe, empowered, and connected. These recorded conversations will also provide some culturally specific strategies and resources that empower our youth through knowledge, tools, and a sense of community as we face these critical issues together. For this episode, I have the pleasure of welcoming back Josayne Anderson-Tejera, Executive Director of the Love Quest Foundation, Inc., songwriter, alumni, and Love Quest Foundation Executive Director. Josayne Anderson-Tejera believes music is a musical love language. It inspires, enlightens, and empowers. She blended her passion with music with her desire to help young people through domestic and teen dating violence and sexual assault, and to really help folks understand they're not alone. The Love Quest Foundation was born because of her own experience with domestic violence in college. To cope and heal, Josayne penned her deepest feelings and experiences on paper. Eventually, she collaborated with musicians on the East and West Coast, putting some of her music into action, some of her work into music. She wanted to empower young people in their relationships and help others to better navigate their love quest. She said, "I wish there had been something I could have gone to empower myself when I was going through it. I had wanted to do something to help young people experiencing trauma express themselves creatively, learn to advocate for themselves, and grow in confidence." Josayne resides in Dutchess County with her husband and two children. A graduate of Exeter College, she has a master's in criminal justice and bachelor's in liberal arts. She also attended the University of Hartford, where she majored in English and creative writing with a minor in criminal justice in Spanish. So you have like a whole bunch of different layers there. It's so interesting. I was so happy to have you on our webinar. You brought so much, insight and perspective, and really glad to have you today to do this Ujima talk. So, anything you wanted to say before we jump into questions? Because I'm a jump in person.
Oh no, just thanks for having me back. We were talking during, February, which is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So yeah, just on the heels of that, getting into women's history. So we're just on a roll here.
Absolutely. All right. So the first question, and we got some of it from our webinar, but for folks who didn't tune into that, I would love for them to learn a little bit more about what brought you into dating violence. We heard from your bio that you experienced dating violence in college, but what really brought you into the work, and again, specifically working with teens and youth?
Yeah, so grew up sheltered, a household of four girls. So my father was like, pretty much, in church 8 days a week. If there was 8 days, didn't really have much kitchen table talks about relationships. It was either you do this, you don't, you do it or you don't.
Hmm.
Don't get pregnant, don't have sex. But it's just like there was no middle conversation and preparing you for like living on your own. So when I left the house, I was very naive in a lot of ways. I learned, the hard way in relationships and failing forward. So I was a student athlete. My daughter's father was a student athlete. Got together fairly quickly. The process happened of me getting pregnant. We dated on Valentine's Day. I missed my period in April. Got the pregnancy results in May. And then he didn't want to do it like before. He was like, "Yeah, we're gonna get married, have kids." And then once it happened, too fast, not the timeline he wanted to force me to have an abortion. And I said, that's not something I'm comfortable with. I was raised, a different way. His family tried to bribe me with getting an abortion. They offered me thousands of dollars. Couldn't really tell my parents because they're high expectations of, this is how we raised you to do. We didn't, raise you to do that. His parents were the same. We sent you to college to do, XYZ. You're off the track. So it was just total isolation. I was I didn't have anybody to talk to but him, really.
Hmm.
So, fast forward, I moved off campus for my safety because it started escalating with the physical things, and I was protecting my unborn child at the time. So, I was forced into this work by
Hmm.
lived experience, but also wanted to make sure no one else went through this. I'm one of the people like I'm very solution oriented. So once something happens or I'm aware of something that I can make a solution for, I'm gonna be 10 toes down.
Hmm. So you've mentioned that you were pretty sheltered growing up. Was that similar messaging you got at home as you were getting from community about relationships and violence and dynamics like that?
It wasn't really talked about. It was I think, I know intergenerationally, like my parents were, born in the 40s and 50s. Their parents were in the 20s, so they were surviving. Like my grandfather was a child of a sharecropper, so we're talking about what freedom was really like. They didn't really have that, and then generationally, if you weren't allowed to talk about things outside the house, you weren't really allowed to talk inside the house, really. So no one was having these discussions intentionally around me. I mean, I just saw examples. Like I had my grandparents or some, so I have three sets of grandparents because I have step grandparents on each side. So I had examples of loving relationships that I saw, but it wasn't like, this is how you get there. This is how you get through it. This is
Hmm.
how you navigate. This is how you find love. I saw it and I experienced it in separate, ways. And of course, my parents loved me, but they didn't have the tools to have the conversation because no one had the conversations with them.
Oh, absolutely. I was talking to Ruth about that on our Ujima talk of like some things that we went through. Yes, it was meant to be protective and it still felt very restrictive or felt very limiting when we got exposed to like the real world when we weren't with our parents anymore.
Yeah.
Um, how do you think some of that messaging has changed with the younger generations?
Our generation, I don't know the letters X, Y, Z. Like I was born in the 80s, whatever that is, and whatever this one is now. But very vocal. They're very advocate. There's a lot of advocacy work and things that they don't want to do from school shootings to,
Hmm.
elections to everything in between. They're very vocal, and I applaud them for that because they're the leaders of now and the future. So we need those voices out there for us. And I believe like people like me and myself, and then seeing, everything is instant social media. Like you can get information instantaneously now. So before
Hmm.
you had to go to the library, card catalog, the internet came out when I was in high school. I was going to college. It was like just came out. So it was just like my daughter was born in college. So it was like the different generations from myself to my daughter to the current is eons of differences. They have the information at their disposal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned, and so I was at a conference once, and a father, he was another exhibitor, but he came up to me, and when he saw that I was doing some domestic violence work, and he was like, it's terrible, but I just don't let my girls date. Like that's just it's not a conversation until they're like 21 and then they're gonna get married and then it'll be fine. And we had this moment together. We're like, wait a minute, that let's like talk this through a little bit more. And you've mentioned and myself as well that like when the framing was just don't date right now, like you're too young anyways, a lot of parents have a really hard time understanding how then their child gets into an intimate partner violent relationship, or that it's already happening, even if they're quote unquote not supposed to be dating. How can you talk to parents about what teen dating violence looks like, and really how about that, the absolute strict rule, like having conversations more about what that looks like for safety?
Yeah, so just engage in the conversations early. Just letting, you might have rules in your house, like, hey, you might have to be 16 or you have to be 14 to do it, but let me, share some of my personal experiences. I'm not saying this for you to do everything that I did, but I'm just letting you know that I've been there, done that. A lot of the youth think that they're the only ones that have gone through the things that I was like, hey, we've done this, we've been there. Like my daughter
Right.
is 24. I was like, everything you are going through, I've been through it. I've done it. I'm trying to help you avoid it. But sometimes people want to, learn them own self. So I would just say, just have transparent conversations because they're gonna have the conversations if it's with you or someone else. And it's
Hmm.
better to come from you. It's better for them to know there's an open door. If you make a mistake or if something doesn't seem right, that you want them to come to you first, or another trusted adult, in your village and your family. But they should know that they can always come to you for everything because silence leads to isolation
Hmm.
and not knowing the definitions of what love is, what healthy is. Like we can't assume that people know what that is because a lot of people throw those words out and don't um implement what those definitions mean. And as an English major, I'm very literal. I'm like, you said
Yeah.
this, you literally said this, and this does not equate. So just you have to do one-on-one with everything. You can't assume that everybody knows the same thing that you're saying and it means the same thing to them.
hmm And so, what are some of the biggest strengths and some of the biggest gaps that you're seeing with people wanting to support teens and younger folks?
I think the strengths are that especially culturally specifically, people of color, we have a lot of empathy. We have a lot of, we want to share our lived experiences. We want to create the blueprint to success in all aspects of life, especially if we can help you, like the fraternities, sororities. There's a lot of different organizations and communities that are there intentionally to help, pour into the youth and each other because you need that. Um, I would say some of the weaknesses are just miscommunication and not knowing that I want to help you over here, but you're over here, then how do we get together over here?
Mhm.
Because then you'll be in circles or like, none of the youth come to me. I don't know. They don't listen. They don't want to hear. But then how do they know you want to do that if you don't,
Right.
what I'm saying, bridge the gap. So I think there's a lot of bridge gap building that needs to continue in this current atmosphere that we're in, a lot of
hmm
resources are dwindling up. So some people are like hoarding them because they don't know when the next thing is coming. So that also is a barrier as well. But many hands make like work to me. Like if you're mission aligned and we can partner and collaborate, I'm open to it. I'm just never in competition with anyone. I want to support. I don't want to,
hmm
not support. So I think those are some of the divides and the things.
Yeah. Can you walk us through a little bit more some of those intersections with youth pregnancy and domestic violence that we'll see?
Yeah, so again, not having the conversations, not being prepared, not being equipped, not knowing about, protective things like, condoms and, birth control pills because it's a misnomer. If you're not allowed to do it, then nobody's going to tell you about the sources to prevent,
hmm
um, early pregnancy or unplanned pregnancy and also sexually transmitted diseases. Like there's so many other things. So when that happens and then you're at a certain age, sometimes you don't even have a permit or a job or a working, so it's like those are barriers instant. Those are instant barriers. Can you stay home or your parents are going to kick you out? Do you have
hmm
stability? And then if you don't, and then somebody's saying, I'll take care of you, and then you're living like a prisoner because, you don't have any other option. There's isolation and then there's people on both sides that do this violence. It's not just one gender. So, not knowing what it looks like, the financial, the emotional, psychological, there's so many layers to it when you're just trying to survive. And when I was pregnant in college, like I'm just genetically, I was very thin. I come from a very thin, high metabolism family. When I had my daughter was 5 pounds. Like you couldn't even tell I was pregnant when I was 9 months. Like if you just happened to like open my jacket, you see. And he was like, "Did you smoke or drink?" I was like, "No," but I couldn't tell him I was stressed out because I was going through domestic violence. Like, what can I
Yeah.
say to you, doctor? Like that was the only question he asked me, did I smoke and drink? There was no other question. That was the only assumption of why my child was so small.
hmm
So it was just, yeah, I had the WIC, I had the food stamps and stuff like that, but still it was just so stressful just
Yeah.
going through that as a college student. And I was only an hour and a half from home, but that hour and a half felt like I was on another planet. Like that's
hmm
how, like when you're going through something, you can be 5 minutes away from where you are and you can still feel alone and so far away. So all of those things just maximize the everything, the impact
hmm
internally and externally.
Yeah, that's I mean, one point all of what you said was really, important and just even thinking of that point about low birth weight. A lot of people are not putting together when, folks are showing up in their practices, they're not really asking those thorough questions. And it really does impact your experience a lot of times and who you also deem as safe to have those conversations with. Yeah. Um, can you talk to us about how you talk to folks on college campuses, folks that are supporting college students about dating dynamics and really having them understand that it's not just like puppy love, it's not just like toxic. You know, everybody's saying toxic and throwing it around
Yeah.
now, but it's really much deeper than that.
Yeah, and we start before college, like high school, because before you're about to get on your own, in your high school, you're in a safe, you're around people that you know, and then you
Hmm.
leave and go out there. So we actually partner with the Tiana Angelique Notice Foundation. Tiana Angelique Notice was murdered on February 14, I believe 2009. She was a student at my alma mater, the University of Hartford, and her father created a foundation in her name. So we go on campuses, including University of Hartford as well as internationally, training law enforcement students, students, community leaders about these very dynamics. Tiana had hundreds of protective orders against her abuser. He would also go to the police station and do the reverse ones against her. They
Hmm.
didn't know who to believe. It was back and forth. There was so much evidence. There was so much text messages, emails, manipulation. Her
Hmm.
father bought her a video camera in her where she parked her car the night before she was murdered. So they captured the murder right on camera. He stabbed her to death right outside her apartment. So it's the dynamics from he said he wasn't who he said he was, right? People mask their intentions.
Hmm.
Some people are outgoing and then all of a sudden you don't see them for weeks and they're isolated and you're like, what's going on? And you don't hear from them and the person wants them all to themselves. It's just so many different things that you just have to pay attention. People are wearing long sleeves in the summertime because they have
Hmm.
bruises on it and they don't want to show themselves. So it's things that are like in plain sight, but if you're not connecting the dots and like being intentional about your thoughts and like correlating behaviors to the actions and the environment that you're in, you're gonna miss a lot of the warning signs. So the red flags and warning signs are very important to identifying the abuser and the person being abused.
Hmm. And just to that point as well, I was just thinking when you were going over that, a lot of people have the misconception that because someone is young, they can't be dangerously violent.
Hmm.
And we know that if someone can be abused at that age, someone can be showing abusive behavior. And so it's just really important that people do really understand that and that it's not just this far off concept. It's really happening, like you were saying, in plain sight. And people are doing the best they can to navigate. But if there's more awareness, more just general conversation, like we build this into our regular conversation, then, it helps reduce a lot of that stigma that makes it so hard to talk about.
And to that point as well, like my daughter's father was very skinny too. So he had like puppy eyes, skinny. They're like, he wouldn't hurt a fly. And it's just
Yeah.
like somebody gets mad enough, they're gonna find some strength,
Yeah.
and it's gonna get Hercules, out of nowhere. So don't let somebody's body type, don't let somebody's personality, how they smooth talk, or they're laid back with you, and you can't imagine them,
Hmm.
being all. Very irate with someone else. It's very possible in a split second or a decision that they don't want can turn somebody from 0 to 100 really quick.
Yes, absolutely. So, talk to us more about the programming that you all do at the Love Quest Foundation.
Yeah, so like I said, like you said in my introduction, I was an English creative writing major. So we write songs, we create awareness and prevention campaigns. So we either write a song, we do a public service announcement in form of a video. So we've created videos based on like my lived experience that the youth acted out. One of our songs is called "I'm Taking Off" about leaving our situation and showing like we were both student athletes and we didn't want to have too much violence in it. But we just showed how you're playing one-on-one basketball, and then the guy throws the ball at you a little bit hard because he doesn't like, what you said, and that's how it escalates from a small thing and it can get bigger. So that was one of our campaigns. We have one called Distractions. It's a football player, and the aggressor is a female to the football player because she didn't like how he was just always at practice and no time for her. We did an animated campaign called Walking Out, and it's about intergenerational violence. So, from a grandmother to a mother to a daughter, seeing it all in three different generations, and then what it will look like if the grandmother put a stop to it, and then how the future trajectory of that person in that household generationally would be. So we make it youth friendly. We get the youth involved, either co-writing the songs, helping us produce the PSAs. They create, bullying campaigns. We're actually doing a documentary right now on our organization and the origin story. So the youth are, we're doing a soundtrack songwriting session with a special guest tomorrow with them. So weaving in arts and culture and making it fun, but also getting the message straight across so they can advocate for themselves and others that they see. They can share the resources at home with their peers. And we also train them to do presentations and outreach when we do tabling. And if they want to, go to their school and, talk about the different things. So we just weave arts and culture into all of our program. We have immersive experiences, take them to Essence Festival. We found Ujima the first time, going to the tabling and resources, but also showing them that you can build a portfolio of your work and you can have a body of work on you at all times. If you have to leave a situation, you're a walking resume and you have the resources with you. So giving them that the networking opportunities, giving them the direct employment opportunity, because we have a workforce development program weaved into programming as well. Um, and relationship capital, it's everything. So all of that is weaved into our program and college tours. And we just every year we add more things, but we just try to make it fun but also informative.
That's amazing. Yeah, I would have loved that in high school. Man, that would have been Essence Fest with my crew. Yeah, I would have loved that. Oh my gosh. And so you definitely talked through a lot of that process for building and developing culturally specific and culturally relevant resources. What other considerations could you suggest to people of like how you, when you're engaging teens, how do you make it culturally relevant to them and how do you make it generationally relevant to them?
Yeah, so credible mentorship, right? Lived experience, like facts tell, but stories tell. So being able to share your own experience, like a lot of some of the youth we work with, they want to be grown up so bad, so fast. And I was like, look, life be lifing, these bills be
Right.
billing. If you could just take your time and just enjoy life right now with the independence that you have by yourself and just learning and growing and developing as a person, start there. It's just like all that stuff can wait. Like our forever First Lady Michelle Obama says all the time, them boys could wait. They ain't that cute. If it's meant to be, it'll be, in the future. But, focusing on building yourself to a whole person because we
Mhm.
have this fairy tale, like somebody's gonna complete me or, I'm not whole until this other person feels I have. No, two whole people need to be in a relationship. You can't have a savior complex. You can't always fill in the gaps. And yes, LMA has that new song 60 to 40. Everybody, filling in the gaps for each other. But that's when you have somebody and you know for a long time, not like as soon as you're starting, you taking the whole load.
Yeah.
Um, so you're just knowing that. And I had a daughter, I got pregnant at 20 years old in college. I had to stop college. I was like, I didn't get my college degree until like 2020, 2016. So I'm just like, there's things that I, missed out on. I had moved off campus. I didn't have the campus experience anymore. I
Mhm.
had to go to work. I had to take care. I was like, take your time because get to your goals that you want for yourself, and then you can share them with someone else, and then be able to provide for a family you want to build. But also tackling the mental health resources, because
Mhm.
culturally that's not popular. I think it's getting better now. But we also share mental health therapy cards. There's a psychologist called Dr. Ebony. She has a mental health resources for culturally relevant, for families, individuals, for teens, journals, and everything. So we give them, it's like a Uno playing card deck. So if they never see a therapist, at least they have them at their disposal to start the conversations. And we use those in our circles, our restorative justice circles, and we use that in our video as well as a resource.
Awesome. I'm like, man, when can I come up there? Um,
Anytime.
what if you could think of two things that you either needed or wanted as a young survivor, what would those two things have been?
Um, Confidentiality, right?
Mhm.
So when I was going through these things, I had confided in people that I grew up with in church. They pretty much told the whole church, so I was forced to tell my parents. So they were the only ones at church who didn't know. So I had to tell them prematurely when I wasn't ready, and because I was going through everything else I was going through, and I was just trying to survive. So that was like extra pressure for me. So when people are asking you things in confidence and they're, asking you to like just hold on to this information until I'm ready for it to be shared, really understanding the severity of that because it could uh, change the trajectory of someone's life really fast. So I would say confidentiality, um, and just resources. I feel like when I was in school and I was looking for financial aid, I went to a private college, so I didn't have all the financial aid to like cover everything. But as soon as I got pregnant, all these resources became available to me. I was like, but when I was doing the thing I was supposed to be doing, it was a
Yeah.
barrier. But all of a sudden, all these resources are opening when I'm on a different path. So being able to support people on all paths, I think
Mhm.
having adequate resources for everybody at all stages would be helpful.
Yeah, that's really great. And then sort of in this same thread, I guess, what to you can healing look like as a survivor advocate?
I think we don't always put that on the forefront because we just want to do the work. We want to make sure we want to make the world a better place. As I was sharing in the panel last week, like, I didn't go to therapy till maybe 3 years ago, and this happened to me over 25 years ago. And then I had traumas since a child. So I feel like if mental health resources were more the norm. Just like if you got cut, you get a Band-Aid, and somebody's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, you going through something? Hell, go right here to this mental health resource. Go to this therapist." Like if it's like if it's more normalized, I
Mhm.
think that that would be a great solution if it was normalized at earlier stages in all cultures across the board.
And then last question, how can folks stay up to date with what you're doing? How can they support you? How can they stay connected with you and with your organization?
Yeah, so the lovequestfoundation.org, all one word, and the is in front of it. The Love Quest Foundation on Instagram, Facebook. We have Zelle, we got PayPal on our page to donate to support. $10 goes a long way. $100 goes a long way. We just came back from our college tour over the weekend, two hotel rooms, under 1,000, took 7 kids. So it doesn't cost a lot to make an impact for people. You know, be any in-kind donations towards our documentary that we're filming. Anything, we take all resources, virtual opportunities for people to pour into our youth networking on the
Mhm.
job training, whatever, people can do. But the lovequestfoundation.org has our email, our phone number, all the things, and all of our social media.
Thank you so much, folks. Definitely connect with the Love Quest Foundation. They do amazing work, as you can see, and they have great resources as well that will really, really help folks in community. You can connect with us and follow for more Ujima talks, webinars, coffee, and convos. We are on social media at Ujima Community everywhere. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We would love to have you back for more conversations. But
Anytime.
as of now, we're gonna head on out and go do some self-care for this day. Thank you. Have a good one, y'all.